Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a post-game edition of the Lashing Out Podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network. Jared's off. I think he's taking a nap somewhere. Hopefully, he made it back to Altoona last night after all that weather that delayed the second half of the Penn State West Virginia game. Joining me tonight is Joe Smeltzer. Joe, Penn State looked dominant yesterday. How are you feeling about the start of the season?
Yeah, it was pretty businesslike. Penn State was the better team, was favored by more than a touchdown, which I know there was a lot of talk about the spread dropping a few points and what that meant. Obviously, it didn't mean a whole lot given how the game played out. But when you're favored by any more than a touchdown on the road, obviously the home team is given 3 points. So that's still a pretty significant spread, and Penn State covered that, blew it out of the water, as a matter of fact, by about 15 points. But yeah, defensively, we always expect Penn State to be solid or beyond solid, no matter who the coordinator is. And it looks like the Tom Allen era is going to be more the same. And then the offense, we saw Andy Kotelnicki really has been as advertised through one game, and so have Harrison Wallace and Drew Aller. And if those three guys can continue to be what they showed yesterday, with Kotelnicki being that dynamic play caller Penn State's lacked really since Joe Moorhead. If Aller can live up to that 5-star hype, which he did at times last season, but didn't do it against Ohio State and Michigan. He still has to do that in those big Big Ten games. And then if Harrison Wallace can be that bona fide number one that Penn State hasn't had since Jahan Dawson left, all those things can happen. It's going to be a pretty fun year for Penn State on offense. And the words "fun" and Penn State offense haven't really been thrown around too much in years past. So that could be big.
Yeah, I certainly think so. Let's start with the defense, though, because I think we can go all night on the offense because I don't know about you, but the offense just has me totally jazzed up. So let's try to save the best for last there. But early West Virginia was having success on offense, right? Like their first drive was pretty successful, and Penn State just hadn't adjusted to the speed of West Virginia's offense. I think it was more um, that in the offseason, you're not tackling, you're not really running full speed a lot. You're doing a lot of 75% stuff, a lot of shorts, maybe some shoulder pads and some helmets. You're not really doing hard tackling just because it's so taxing on the body, right? This could be a really long season. Let's say Penn State, overreaction, but let's say Penn State makes it to the Final Four, or they make it to the actual the the national final game. You're looking at a 16 game season, maybe 17 if they play three. And so, this could be a really long season. This is getting into NFL length seasons. So the defense probably didn't do a lot of tackling in the offseason because you don't want to get guys hurt. Like guys don't get hurt on non-contact injuries. It's a lot of contact injuries, a lot of shoulder stuff. We saw Jaheim White for West Virginia had a little looked like it was his shoulder, but I think it ended up being his wrist. So like that's those are some bumps and bruises that you get from hitting, and you want guys coming into the season healthy. So West Virginia had a lot of success early, but Penn State figured out how to tackle. I think there was one tackle. Um, it was either Carter or Rojas. I can't remember who, but like could have stopped West Virginia short, came over with a shiver instead of actually wrapping up on the sideline. And West Virginia was able to fall forward for the first down on a fourth down where they should have been stopped.
Yeah,
Like that's a
that
week
was
one
Rojas,
tackling.
I'm pretty sure.
I think it
Yeah.
was Rojas, but like that's a week one tackling mistake. But Penn State adjusted to West Virginia's speed. West Virginia was really trying to spread the Penn State defense out, really get east west, and Penn State just shut it down. And the only thing that West Virginia found success on was stuff at the line of scrimmage and behind it. A lot of the stuff was not downfield. They had a couple downfield stuff late, um, when the reserves were in, but for the most part, everything that West Virginia did was at the line of scrimmage or behind it. Um, I mean, it was a good performance for the Tom Allen era. It was a good opener for the Tom Allen era.
Yeah, and the Penn State secondary really was just on from almost the first play. In fact, literally the first play. Jalen Reed does a great job with that pass breakup, and Jalen Reed was just absolutely dominant. He was Penn State's highest graded player on Pro Football Focus defensively. He played the second most snaps of any defender. He was only one behind KJ Winston, who also had a really good game as we've come to expect from him, but. As far as setting a tone goes, you want your veterans to do that. Jalen Reed he's not a captain full time, but he was one of the guys walking out for the coin toss during this game. And James Franklin even said, and I posted a video to Twitter that got some pretty solid traction with James stopping by Jalen Reed's post game interview and saying, hey, you were all over the field in that first quarter. And we really looked like you were playing at a different speed than everybody else. And I would definitely agree with the head coach there. Jalen Reed was absolutely fantastic. I know we just talked about Tony Rojas's missed tackle, but I thought for a guy playing 47 snaps, which is 27 more than his previous career high, uh, I thought he played a pretty solid football game as well, showcasing that size and speed. So, yeah, early on there were some struggles I think on both sides for Penn State, but once they figured it out, boy, did they figure it out.
Yeah, they certainly did. And if you want to go to the secondary, KJ Winston had 12 tackles and Jalen Reed had 9. Those were by far the team
Yep.
lead. And for a team that, let's see, they gave up 6 plays of 10 yards or more, and 4 of those were 10-yard plays. Like, that's a dominant performance. Like I said earlier, everything was at or behind the line of scrimmage for West Virginia, and your 2 safeties are the ones who lead the team in tackles. Like, defense knew how to stop West Virginia, and they were absolutely flying around the ball. And man was that fun. Sorry, that was 6 rushing plays of 10 yards or more, 5 passing plays. So a couple big plays for West Virginia, but the safeties were flying around. Cam Miller looked strong after getting lit up, kind of thrown to the fire in the Peach Bowl last year. I thought he had a good performance. And the rest of the defensive secondary, they like it. Garrett Green, the when we had Mike Asti on in the pregame, it was like Penn State's going to sell out to stop the run. Penn State is better at stopping the run this year than they were last year. And Mike was like, "That's fine. Like Garrett Green is up to the task." And 15 of 28 for 161 yards was not up to the task at all for Garrett Green. So big positives for Penn State on the defensive side. Just dominant performance. That's what you want in week one. Week one is always the struggle for defenses just because they're not used to live action. Offense, you can do 75% speed. You might miss some timing on things. But for defense to have that good of a performance, that was really strong. Really, really strong start.
Yeah, and I was really confused by West Virginia's game plan because why wasn't Garrett Green running? This is the one
He didn't have
thing that
time.
he does that separates himself from most other quarterbacks and made him what some feel they probably don't feel this anymore, but what some felt coming in was a Heisman dark horse. And Pat McAfee was saying all week, Garrett Green's gonna run. Wow, Garrett Green's a dog. He's gonna run all over Penn State, and he just didn't. I don't really know why. He only carried the ball 10 times for 5 yards, and for a guy that averaged 6 yards a carry last season and rushed for 780 yards. He would have led a lot of teams in the country in rushing. I don't know if it was something they saw with Penn State defensively that made them hesitant to run the ball. But whatever it was, they just really, if Garrett Green can't run, he's not much of a quarterback, just to be frank. And West Virginia just didn't cut Garrett Green loose. And I think Penn State definitely benefited from that because in talking to players before the game, they were expecting Garrett Green to run, and maybe that's part of why they didn't run Garrett Green too much. But in any case, if West Virginia is gonna make some noise in the Big 12, they got to have that guy doing more than 10 carries and rushing for more than 5 yards.
Yeah, 233 total yards given up by the starting defense yesterday. I mean, dominant performance. Reserves got in late. 26 players played a snap on defense. That's what you want in those big games. To be able to get Bo Prabula in for what, 2 or 3 drives at the end of the game as the number one guy, uh, big for a big matchup against another Power Five opponent. Like 34-12 was never close. Let's get to the offense. Man, the Andy Kotelnicki era is going to be fun. I think I did have some hyperbole on Twitter that my firstborn son's name would be Andy. A little bit of an overreaction, but just everything that the offense had. I don't know if I like how much they went to Bo, um, but maybe it'll grow on me. It worked well against West Virginia. Does it work well against a stronger defense? I wouldn't say that West Virginia has a weak defense. It was definitely fast. It was definitely athletic, but it's not the strongest defense Penn State's going to play. But this isn't the full off. This isn't the full offensive um, playbook for this year. I think I posted also on Twitter like that was like pages 1 through 5 of the playbook, and I bet you there's a whole like
Yep.
3-inch binder full of plays. Like we
Yeah,
just scratched the
Harrison
surface.
Wallace said they used a third of the playbook, pretty much. So
I and I feel like that's like a third is probably generous.
yeah, absolutely. And yeah, at receiver too, obviously, well, Harrison Wallace, not much more needs to be said. Five catches, 117 yards, 2 touchdowns, all in the first half. That pretty much speaks for itself. But how about Amari Evans with maybe I it might have been the biggest play of the game. You think about it. That 55-yarder, Neil Brown thought it should have been offensive pass interference, but I didn't think it was. You didn't think it was. It wasn't called that. And as a result, Amari Evans does what he's done. He's been doing more frequently ever since Mike Yurcich was fired as offensive coordinator, and that's making a big play. You look at it. The first game of the post Yurcich era, he had a great 25-yard reception. I think it was a diving catch, if I remember correctly, against Rutgers. Then the next game against Michigan State, he has that 60-yard catch, which I think also was a diver, put him right at the goal line. And then the Peach Bowl, nobody really did much of anything offensively for Penn State. But then week 1, 2024, he has that great catch that puts Penn State in field goal range. And a few plays later, they end up scoring a touchdown with a play that Neil Brown also complained about. He felt it looked like the ball was moving in the end zone, but that was called a touchdown, and Penn State went up 20-6. And without the weather delay, I think Penn State would have been just fine. But with the weather delay and fans, I think justifiably not sticking around and leaving, and Milan Puskar Stadium being half empty, at least maybe even more than half empty. Like West Virginia, they were done. They didn't have a chance in that second half. But yeah, I think Omari Evans' big play was something that really it wasn't the same game after that. That was the moment we really felt like, okay, Penn State has this thing. Penn State's going to be okay.
Yeah, and that drive to end the half, that's not something we've seen um, Penn State do in the past, right? They get the ball on the 25. I think it was the 25-yard line. No, it was on the 28-yard line. Um, 3 plays, 73 yards. They get the ball with 30 seconds left in the game, or in the half, 32 seconds, something like
Yep.
that. Run the ball. Nothing really happens. Get a couple yards. And they're just like, screw it. Like, let's just see what happens. James Franklin gave the line of the season already. Ducks accepted, spirals preferred for heaving the ball down the field. That was in the halftime interview on Fox, and then he went to that line again. I think he was quite proud of that line. I'm very pleased with that line. I thought that was pretty good. But like just to heave, like not the best, prettiest thrown ball Drew's ever thrown. TV doesn't really catch the spiral nature of a long pass like that. But obviously, if James Franklin's calling it a duck, it probably was. So probably a little jab at Drew that that the prayer was answered on that one. But then the catch by Trey Wallace, the ball was perfectly placed, and that doesn't happen without what they did early in the game, right? First 3 or 4 throws from Drew, kind of all over the place, threw one behind Omari Evans, and like Omari was just like ran something, ball was just badly thrown, and They went to a hitch route. They went to a 7-8 yard hitch route. Just put a guy in the slot. I think it ended up going to Trey Wallace as well. Just Trey runs a 7-yard hitch, stops, curls. Drew hits him right on the numbers, and Drew didn't look back from there. He went from 11 for 17 from the game, and I think he was 0 for 3 to start, or 1 for 4 to start. Something not good. He was just nervous. The atmosphere, credit to the West Virginia fans, the atmosphere was phenomenal yesterday. And I think, honestly, with as much momentum as they gained in the first half in the middle 8 of the game, we might be looking at a 40 or 50 burger hung on West Virginia yesterday. Like, as good as the weather delay was to go review film, I think it kind of took some air out of the Penn State sails a little bit. I thought it was going to be a lot uglier than it was at the end. So, running along in this first segment, why don't we head over to the second segment, get some more lasting thoughts of the game, maybe what we're going to see going forward, and what they maybe need to do to improve next week. So we'll catch you the second segment of Lashing Out Podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network. Welcome back to the second segment of the Lashing Out Podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network. I'm Kevin. He's Joe. Joe, a lot of highs, couple lows yesterday. Harrison Wallace was the offense in the passing game. Julian Fleming did have the second most snaps. Him and Harrison Wallace both had 35 offensive snaps yesterday. He played an important role on the long touchdown to Trey Wallace. They ran a little scissor concept there. Julian took the two defenders because teams were gearing up as if Julian was going to be wide receiver one. I think, going forward, defenses are going to adjust. I think they were going heavy on Julian Fleming. Trey was just having one of those all-world days, the breakout days that we see in college, we see in sports all the time. But I think going forward, we need to see a little bit more diversity in the passing game. But again, Drew only had 17 pass attempts.
Yeah, and I would agree with that too, right? You want to see, even though Julian Fleming can do so much more than just catch passes, right? You mentioned that second touchdown is a great example. Fleming was brought here a lot due in part to his physicality, due in a large part to just the way he plays the position in addition to just catching the ball. But at the same time, you want him to one pass, right? You want to see more there, I think, in production from him.
I don't think he even had a
pass
target.
Catching wise, Liam Clifford.
I don't think Fleming even had a target. So
no, but Liam Clifford, for all the talk he's gotten this offseason, you're going to want to see something from him. Because if Liam doesn't produce, fans are going to get impatient and they're going to accuse James Franklin of somewhat of nepotism, right? Because he is Sean's brother. And we saw last year, right? Why is this guy playing so much? It's only because of his last name. They should be playing somebody else. But I think that's a little bit unfair. And I do think that the words that we heard about Liam Clifford all off season from guys like Theo Johnson, from James Franklin, obviously, from other receivers, I think Penn State genuinely believes that Liam Clifford could be a big receiver, but we just haven't seen it yet, and we didn't see it yesterday, so we're going to want to see more from that too. I like Amari Evans a lot, and we talked about that big reception which set up the second touchdown and really put Penn State in command, but I don't know how sustainable it is for this to be a guy that just has one big catch a game and then not much else there. I think you want to see a little more. I don't know if consistency is the right word, but you want Amari to be good for more than just one big play. So yeah, it'd be great if Trey Wallace is that bona fide number one receiver, which he definitely played like in week one. But at the same time, you want some guys to get a little more involved, and I think that's going to be a big thing to watch. Even though it's only Bowling Green, that's going to be something to watch. Is can guys other than Trey Wallace and Amari Evans for more than one play step up? But this is worth pointing out, Kevin. Last season, 6 receivers caught passes against West Virginia, and we all know what happened after that. So maybe a little reverse mojo, that could be an omen too. So
Yeah, and it's a road game. It's a tough environment. Drew's played with Trey obviously longer than he's played with Julian. Um, it's just you want to see, like you're just wanting more, but uh, I think Andy's going to get a week to look at the film, a week to scheme, and I will say like that game, it felt like James trusted Andy to make calls.
oh yeah.
Like it, there were no iffy decisions. It just felt like Andy. All right, it's week one. Like Penn State got out early. I mean, they struggled on offense early, which it's week one. You kind of expect it, but like West Virginia found a couple first downs on their first couple possessions. Penn State had the bad snap. Potentially, I mean, Drew was irate after the fumbled snap. Got a little ball don't lie moment after that, where West Virginia fumbled the next play. So kind of leveled out on us, but it was just a rough, clunky start to things. And I think Drew was antsy, like I said earlier. He just needed to find his guy. Trey Wells had the hot hands, and you and I both know receiving is a you have it today or you don't thing. Trey Wallace had it. Drew just found him. He was open. I think the route schemes, everything was better under Kotelnicki. And I think Kotelnicki, yeah, Omari Evans has 2 catches for 55 yards and all 55 coming on that one pass. But that's a guy I feel like is going to be dangerous in an Andy Kotelnicki system. Like speed demon, you could put him in the slot. Maybe you see him coming out of the backfield, slipping through the cracks. Maybe we get a Nick Singleton Wildcat pass. Bo Prabula might find him in a run heavy package look. I like that ripple. Drew actually throwing out of the Wildcat, not just being a run specialist, because West Virginia's like, oh, this guy can't throw, and didn't really prove that last year that he could. And all of a sudden finds the seam route open again to was that Katron Allen?
Yep.
Yeah, it was Katron. He found Katron Allen wiggling out the backfield on that one. So
And that's a big thing too, because we heard I think third spring ball we had Katron after a practice, and he said he had been lining up at receiver, and for a running back to catch a 20-yard touchdown, that's a pretty big deal. I think Katron's caught touchdowns before, but I don't think I would
it's
have
not
to
of the
guess
20-yard variety.
yeah, I would have to guess that's probably his longest touchdown. But yeah, that just goes to show how different this offense really is. And people are always going to wonder, okay, because Franklin's an offensive guy, is he going to meddle in what his coordinator wants to do? But no, I don't think we saw any of that yesterday. It was very, very clearly Andy Kotelnicki's offense.
It kind of has the Moorhead effect feel, where
Oh yeah,
Kotelnicki and James are on the same wavelength. We haven't had that with Kirk Soraka. We did not have it with Mike Yursich, where James felt the need to meddle. It doesn't feel like James has the need to meddle because James wants to run that offense, and Andy Kotelnicki is running it exactly the way he wants. We'll see how that relationship evolves. It's week one, a lot of highs. What does it look like against Ohio State coming up in 6-8 weeks from now? But a lot of promises there. Just a couple question marks. I don't think I have any question marks on defense. I think defense, 233 yards against Power 5 offense, Big 12 offense, an offense capable of electricity is good. So I do want to touch on the officiating because, oh my, was it bad? West Virginia got 10 points off of possessions that shouldn't have. Garrett Green was stopped clearly a half yard short. That play doesn't even go to review. Penn State called the timeout to get him to go to review. I think they also only had 10 people on the field for the first down play after the just didn't get the review. Or no, that one got confirmed. I'm sorry. The fourth down run that got stopped half yard short. That one got reviewed and confirmed as being a first down, which was blasphemous. And then the touchdown late was it Donaldson, the running back from West Virginia?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, he falls clearly short of the goal line on 3rd and goal. Now, does West Virginia punch that in on 4th and goal? Yeah, probably. But give Penn State another shot to try to get a goal line stand there. And that Donaldson, he was built different. Like I think he was 6'2", 235. Like that's a big boy in the backfield. But if I'm Penn State, like I want that game situation because Ohio State's got some big boys in the backfield. Georgia's going to have some big boys in the backfield. Um, I want that game situation. I want to know how I can do against it. Um, I don't understand why it was a Big 12 officiating crew yesterday. Intra-conference game or inter-conference game. Um, home conference gets the officials. Like usually you get like the Big 12's officiating the LSU USC game tonight. Why did the Big 12 get a West Virginia home game against an out-of-conference opponent? Now, Penn State got away with some things. The Omari Evans could have been offense pass interference. You and I both agree it shouldn't have, but like, does a neutral refereeing crew call it? But man, it felt like some home cooking there. I'm not blaming officiating. I mean, Penn State won, but like, officials were in week 0 form there.
Yeah, and a lot of Penn State fans are getting on Neil Brown for calling out. And Neil Brown didn't call out the officiating crew; he was calling out the replay system, which I think is important to note because there definitely is a big difference when plays go to review, and that spot is a great example because that should not have been called a first down on the field. Definitely should not have been confirmed. But the crime in that lies not in the call on the field, but in the replay. Like, why do we have replay if it's not going to be 100% accurate? And the plays that didn't go to review, there's somebody up there that takes a look and should say, you got to look at this one. So that's on replay too. Yeah, I'm not saying that the Big 12 officiating crew had a perfect day, but I think the bigger problems with yesterday's game, and I don't know if it was a great idea for Neil Brown to say anything about video review, officiating, and things of that nature after a 22-point loss at home, especially given last season when he also complained about officiating, saying that basically implying that he felt Penn State was getting away with holding, and also the comments about Penn State running up the score late, which were brought back up in the lead up to this game, and West Virginia did not stuff that did not come back around as Neil Brown said it might last season. But yeah, I think overall I kind of agree with him in the sense that video review what didn't really serve its purpose yesterday. I don't think one team benefited from it necessarily more than the other, but in any case, when the eye in the sky, it's his job to say when something should be reviewed, and then when that thing is reviewed, it's their job to get it right, and that just wasn't clicking yesterday.
Yeah, and there was a seam route to Preston Fox where it looked like the ball may have moved. It didn't rotate, but it looked like the ball shifted in his hands. That was a 25-yard gain for West Virginia, and that doesn't even get to review. Like, replay booth just never even called it down. It didn't matter. The game was so far out of reach. The officiating did not determine the outcome of the game, but it's weird. And having a Big 12 crew for a Big 12 home game against a different conference, like, that just didn't sit right with me from the jump. I just don't understand it. I don't know how that's usually like the away team brings their officials, or you get a neutral conference official officiating group. So that was kind of a oddity to me. Last thing about the game, I should have done this earlier, but the defensive line, I think it did a lot of good things. The stats do not look good, but Garrett Green was uncomfortable. I think Abdul Carter is getting used to his new position at defensive end. Denine Dennis Sutton had a game, and if Neil Brown wants to complain about holding, I can probably show him 8 or 10 plays where Abdul is just getting tackled, double teamed, and he's trying to break through the double team, and like his shoulder stuck between the guys. Just it seemed like he was getting held all day long, because I think that's the only way you can contain Abdul Carter is to hold him all day long. Denai Dennis Sutton had, I think, 4 quarterback hurries. Defensive tackle looked good yesterday. That was a weak point for Penn State last year. And defensive tackle was not a weak point yesterday. And also Kobe King. King looked fantastic too at middle linebacker.
Yeah, and Carter was also going up against Wyatt Milam, who could very well be a first team All Big 12 selection. He's going to be playing on Sundays pretty soon. He was going against Milam in the first half. Milam ended up getting hurt and missing the second half, but he's not going to face too many. He's not going to go up against too many tackles that are better than that. So that's definitely a good first test for Abdul as well. You mentioned defensive tackle, and looking at Pro Football Focus's snap counts, it's pretty interesting because you have Zane Durant, who's clearly Penn State's number one guy at D tackle. He plays 39 snaps, but after him, Devon J. Thomas, formerly Elise, he plays 27. Keziah Izzard, he plays 25, and then Hakeem Beamon plays 23. So it could have been just rotating more than usual because of the weather and because of just wanting to keep guys fresh from cramping and all that. But we could also be seeing Alonzo Ford played 22 snaps as well. We could also be seeing kind of a lot of guys shifting around at that second tackle spot in the 4-3. Some people call it a 4-2-5. Penn State mixes it up a lot, so I don't know if we know the set defense yet. But in any case, you're going to have four guys at the front. So we know Zane Durant is that number one guy at D tackle, but judging by the snap counts, the second D tackle, Penn State has a lot of guys that can fill that role and a lot of experience. I mean, Keziah Izzard is in his fifth season. Jay Thomas is in his sixth season. Beeman is in think he's in year 6 too, if I had that right. And then Ford's played a lot of football, albeit not for Penn State. He's come over from Old Dominion. But yeah, there's a lot of depth at that defensive tackle position. And as far as snap counts go, that stuck out to me almost as much as anything else because Penn State's got a lot of dudes they can play up front alongside Zane Durant.
5 dudes in a hard-hitting Big Ten Conference schedule. At defensive tackle, that's not what Penn State. They did not have 5 formidable people last year who were ready to go because Alonzo Ford was hurt all last year, just as an example. So a lot of good things there, but I think we beat this one to death. Let's go look around the country because a lot of other teams got beat to death and week 1 traditional college football schedule. So we'll be right back on the third segment of the Lashing Out Podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network. Welcome back to the third and final segment of the Lasching Out Podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network. I'm Kevin. He's Joe. Joe, a lot of good games around the country yesterday. A lot of lopsided big games around the country. My eyes are quickly drawn to Georgia at Clemson and Georgia and the Aflac kickoff game.
Yeah, Clemson's washed. But at the same time, I will say I don't think it's fair that Georgia can play a game in Atlanta and they call it a neutral site. I mean, come on, who's being fooled by that? But at the same time, I mean, the numbers don't lie. The numbers for Dabo since 2021, they're just Clemson had a great run, one of the better runs we've seen in college football, certainly in the 2010s, and probably one of the better runs we've seen in the 21st century too. But it's over. Clemson hasn't embrace NIL, I don't think the way it should, and it's going to catch up with them. But Georgia is still Georgia, and Kirby's might very well have the best team in the country. I think it's either them or Ohio State. But Clemson is clearly not at that level anymore.
Yeah, that was ugly for Clemson. It was never competitive. They kind of came out clicking to start the second half, and then it just absolutely fizzled out from there. So looks like another tough season for Clemson coming up. I think they're a bit overrated at 14. And Georgia, number 1, needs to be capitalized, bolded, 48-point font, whatever you want, because that is by far the top team in the country. Other top teams in the country, Ohio State doesn't struggle with Akron at all. Oregon very much struggled with Idaho. For a team that's preseason number 3, Desmond Howard's picking them to win the national title. Pretty much every other analyst and in the college football universe is picking Oregon as that number 2 team in the Big Ten championship game. And Idaho had a 1-possession game with 7 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter. And for a high-flying offense, Dylan Gabriel has 380 yards passing, and they only put up 24 points.
Yeah, and Oregon's thought to be a national title contender, as you mentioned, and they had the Heisman favorite too, playing quarterback. So, remembering what Penn State did to Idaho in 2019, 70-7, I think that was the final
Yeah.
score. Yeah, Idaho is not a team that should be within striking distance midway through the fourth quarter. I think Oregon's going to figure it out. They certainly have to figure it out by the time they play Ohio State October 12th. What a game and what a Saturday of college football overall that's going to be. Red River, Penn State, USC, I think Alabama, Tennessee also that weekend. That's going to be fun. But uh, yeah, I think Oregon will be fine. But for the Ducks to be a national title team, which many are picking them, Desmond Howard included, uh, they got to do better than 24 against Idaho.
Yeah, I would not. So the rankings won't come out until Tuesday because we do have a game on Monday. Florida State, hopefully, fingers crossed, losing to BC tomorrow night. Hot take. I'm rooting for Florida State's downfall today or this week or this year. I mean, I always root for Florida State's downfall. So nothing new there. But another team that should not have been as close as they were late. Fresno State, Michigan. Fresno State also had it as a one possession game with 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Michigan, the Michigan quarterback situation, it's not sorted out at all, and it does not look like it's going to be sorted out anytime soon.
Yeah, I've heard that song and dance from before the Connor Stallions era. Michigan just had no stability at quarterback. I guess Shea Patterson was okay, but Jake Rudock, uh, I'm kind of blanking on the names. But yeah, just really nothing. Kay McNamara was okay, and then JJ McCarthy. But yeah, for the first part of the Harbaugh era, they really had nothing at quarterback. And this season, it looks like there's just more uncertainty at that position. Penn State avoids Michigan this season, but I don't think this is a good time to be playing Texas if you're Michigan right now. That's just even in the big house, that's going to be a test, and we know Texas has no issues at quarterback. So
No, absolutely not. Texas is too deep at quarterback now because Arch Manning got his first touchdown pass. So
yep.
Davis Warren was the guy for Michigan yesterday, a total QBR of 33. Mikey Keene of Fresno State had a 41.2. If you're Michigan, your starting quarterback should not have a worse QPR than the opposing Fresno State Bulldogs. Jackson Arnold looked like a stud against Oklahoma yesterday. I don't think there's much to talk about there. You mentioned Texas, 52-0 on Colorado State. Alabama, no issues. Notre Dame, Texas A&M. That was a really slow burner there to start. Notre Dame ends up pulling it out. Didn't look spectacular.
No.
I didn't see a lot from them. I don't think they're necessarily a team to watch, and that's probably good for Penn State because it seems like that's probably a team that might fall out of the race for the top 12 just because they can only get an at large this year. Iowa puts up 40 against Illinois State, and my boys out in Arizona, 61-39. Defense is still bad. But Noah Fafita picking up where he left off last year, 422 yards and 4 touchdowns.
And for, one receiver had 300 of them.
Yeah, school record there for Arizona. 10 receptions, 304 yards, and 4 touchdowns for T. McMillan, Teta Iroa McMillan. And let's see, USC LSU, that's going on right now as we record. Miller Moss looks like a dude, but so does Nussmeier for LSU. Also looks like a dude. Lacey from LSU, that receiver, Kyron Lacey. What a catch on the sideline there. And the good thing for Penn State, it doesn't look like USC learned how to play defense in the offseason. The bad thing for Penn State is if USC loses this game, it's going to hurt Penn State's strength of schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Penn State fans, the game's going to be over by the time this is out. But Penn State fans, if you weren't rooting for USC, you should have been because one, you want the strength of schedule, as you mentioned, but two, you want both of those teams to be as strong as possible. Just as a college football fan, going into that game, right? Both teams undefeated. If USC was undefeated, they'd probably be in the top 10. Penn State would be, I think by October, they're not going to lose the game before USC. But yeah, that'd just be great for football. And USC will see if they pulled it out. But they don't have Oregon or Ohio State. So they're definitely a team that could make some noise in the Big Ten as well. And I think they can make some noise at Penn State's expense. A lot has to go USC's way, but I think that's a game that could give Penn State a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and USC has Michigan coming up in 2 weeks. They've got a Utah State tune-up, then Michigan. So like USC could put, if they win it tonight, which they're down 4 right now, 13-17 with about 10 minutes to play. They could have 2 ranked wins on their resume coming in 5-0 before the Penn State game. Penn State could beat a ranked opponent who has also beat ranked opponents, which is not something Penn State gets often, because the only teams in the Big Ten that are beating ranked opponents right now are Ohio State and Michigan, and Penn State's not beaten them in the last since 2016, or I guess they beat Michigan in 2018, maybe 2019, whatever it was. It's been a while. It's been 5 years since they beat either. So
yeah, and no Oregon or Michigan this year for Penn State. So I think we were talking about this earlier. The schedule overall works to Penn State's advantage. Wisconsin on the road won't be easy, but Wisconsin's had better teams. I mean,
Wisconsin did not look good yesterday.
No, and you already got through West Virginia. USC is going to be tough. We know that. Minnesota, I mean, by November, I think this offense is going to be absolutely rolling. So I don't think Minnesota will be a problem. Purdue stinks. And then Ohio State, we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I've heard people say that the schedule doesn't work to Penn State's advantage, that it's too tough for them to get into the playoff. But I don't agree, and I think so.
If week one's anything of a measure, Penn State's going to play Ohio State twice this season. They're going to play them in the regular season. They're going to play them in the Big Ten, because if Oregon's looking as rough as they do now, Oregon's schedule is not nice. They got to play. I think they're at Ohio State, if I'm not mistaken. So that could be tough for them. So Oregon could fall rather quickly given their schedule. No, they have Ohio State at home, but
that's a big advantage.
Yeah. So I think that's going to do us. I think we've done week one. Any parting shots for you, Joe?
Oh yeah, one thing I forgot to mention in the Penn State breakdown was how about Smith Filbert yesterday? Obviously everybody saw the strip sack which denied Dennis Sutton recovered, but here's a guy that hadn't played a college football game 2 years ago. Last season missed the full year due to injury, but he played a pretty solid game overall at defensive end. The analytics agreed with that. Looking at the snap counts right now, Smith Filbert played 25 snaps, which in a defensive line that includes Denied Dennis Sutton, Abdul Carter, Amin Vanover, 25 snaps, that's a pretty good hunk of snaps. And he made the most of them. In fact, he was the third highest grade player, I believe, defensively, with a minimum of 20 snaps. Elliott Washington technically was the highest graded player, but he only played 17. Shout out to him. He got his first interception. But Smith Filbert's grade was 77.7. The highest graded player, Jalen Reed, was 81.6. So that's pretty high praise. And I know we can take PFF with a grain of salt for a lot of reasons, but I think anybody who watched that game, and especially that strip sack, was impressed by what Smith Filbert was able to do.
All right. Any teams you wish to do bad in the college football season this year? We didn't get you on the preseason show, so anybody you wish ill wishes on? Actually, hold on. Before you think, while you're thinking about that, Florida, holy cow, they got boat raced by Miami. I don't know if you saw this. Bad. After the game, did you see the Miami players?
Yep.
All the Florida recruits are sitting right there by the visitor tunnel.
Yeah.
Terrible decision for Florida to put
Yeah.
their
That's
recruits.
Florida's fault.
That's Florida's
Yeah.
fault. That poor staffer was like, "No, Miami players, you got to get away from here." But all the Miami players just trash talking all the Florida commits and recruits. Was like, "Dude, you don't want to go here. Clearly, they suck. Like, we're the team in Florida. Come down south." I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, Cam Ward's a star. I think
Yeah.
he's really good.
He's as advertised. I mean, Florida's not any good, but he's as advertised. So, any teams you wish ill on this year? I'm out for blood on Florida State. I'm on the Arizona bandwagon.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe Pitt, just so I can make fun of a bunch of my friends. But aside from that,
Pitt's always bad. They'll do that job for you. So, well, with that, I think that'll wrap up week 1. And thank you for listening to the Lashing Out podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network.